Hi, very warm welcome. It's Gene from Avstar. You know, we've all been in an abusive relationship and we know how it always ends. And the reason why I'm showing you the clip of yesterday's video is because I wanted you to see clearly the little climate change banner at the bottom of the video that YouTube chose to put on there from our friends at the United Nations. You know, the United Nations are the New World Government, just the same as the European Union. You know, unelected officials dictating to world governments what they should and shouldn't do, and trying to come off as the nice guys. Just read it. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas. If you was to click on that, it's going to tell you about CO2 being the cause of it. Through burning coal, oil and gas, and through, you know, the conductivity of running a farm like we have done for the last 3,000 years, you know, has led to methane gas going up in the atmosphere and things like that. And of course, we're going to look at the facts and just see how true it is. Because, like I said in yesterday's video, with all these floods that are taking place right now, you know, they are saying that the cause of those floods is human activity. The burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas. Makes me laugh because here we are in the UK and they've pushed the target now out to 2050 to become net zero. So their intentions are to continue earning money off CO2 lies and scams for the next 20 years or so. And of course, you know, you can't earn money from revenue raised, you know, like ordinary countries do on their GDP, because, you know, that has led to insolvency. You know, they have failed you people out there listening to this video to realise what is the, you know, inevitable problem that we're going to fall into in the near future with the rising of technology. I'm talking about artificial intelligence and robotics and mechanisation of factories. I saw on the TV just yesterday that a company called Dyson, that make all your vacuums and hairdryers, are laying off 1,000 people due to global shifts in trends. Think about that. You know, we saw last year or the year before, you know, 50,000 jobs being axed from a company that ran the telecommunications in this country. It said, you know, it's called, I'm going to say it's BT, but we know it's owned by a French company. And talking of companies, you know, I was watching Gerald Celente and he was, you know, just talking about a few facts, that the SMP is pretty much owned by 3 companies now. You know, I think it was about 60 or 70% is owned by 3 companies that own the majority of the companies in the world. You're telling me that there isn't racketeering going on here and that the mafia are not running things? Are you telling me that we had a fair elections last week in the country when Keir Starmer was elected? The guy that cannot stay on track with anything he says and is hell-bent on silencing anybody that goes against the grain of what he says or the government says, and that he is prepared within 2 days to put forward emergency laws into action to stop people talking. We've got Tommy Robinson this week in London doing, a protest about the immigration that's out of control in this country. And I applaud anybody that has any time on their hands to participate in that. But I fear it's going to be shut down before it starts. It's going to happen on the 27th in London, and the guy's going to find himself in a lot more trouble once again. This is a guy that had his bank account seized. I think he had about 1.5 million in there. Obviously, they use the same tactics every time. Go for the money. Look what they did with Alex Jones. They went out for the money, and they're going to do it to anyone that speaks out. But what really makes people a target, I'm going to tell you this now, I have noticed a trend, and you may, well, after hearing me say this, already know it, that when people start to organise protests, they get the hammer come down on them straight away. That is the intolerable action that these mobsters, gangsters and horrible people will not tolerate. It really is a shameful time that we're living in, and there is no democracy. There's plenty of talk about that word, but the definition truly is not being demonstrated by any of these world leaders, and we're going to see the same happen. We saw it in France with the elections with Macron, and we saw it in the UK with the elections here with Keir Starmer, and we're going to see the same happen in the United States. And it doesn't matter whether it's Biden or Trump. You get a chocolate cake. That's how they pacify us. They talk about all these great things. We're going to create jobs. We're going to stop the immigration. It's like they think that that's the only things that we've got on our minds. What about the overtaxation and the fraud that is taking place and the laundering that's taking place right before everybody's eyes? And they think that we're worried about, democracy now at this point. It's going to explode at some point, and it really doesn't matter. I think now, and I'm starting to think this more often, that the magnetic pole reversal is just, a precursor to let us know that what is about to take place is going to be unprecedented, because it is a rare event. 780,000 years ago there was a magnetic reversal, and for some reason a massive delay. Now it's on our backs. We couldn't be any unluckier. And if the core, like I've had a couple of our superstars, Kendall Gibson over in Canada and Robert Watkins here in the UK, send me the same article in the same week, and then I don't believe that they communicate with each other, but what are the chances of that happening? And the article is about the Earth core already in reverse. Well, I've got to say this. If the Earth's core was in reverse right now, then the polarity of the Earth would have already swapped. So, I'm not seeing that from the equipment that we've got here that monitors that sort of activity, the magnetic pole reversal. We're not seeing that. But then our equipment is focused not on the Earth's core, but on tracking the geomagnetic North Pole and positioning it so that we can see how fast it migrates. And we've seen a slight increase, only a very slight increase, but we haven't seen it reverse. And I'll guarantee you this, the minute we start to see an increase, it won't be long before it will reverse. It could take a month to reverse once it's in full, momentum. But we're not there yet. And, this is coming from the mainstream media, this article. And, I don't discredit it. I'm just saying, right, that, if the Earth's core is reversed, then the polarity of it would have reversed as well. I would have imagined, being a scientist, that it would have flipped the magnetic poles, because something now is running in reverse. I probably should set this experiment up for us on a coil, because a compass will point towards the coil whilst electricity is flowing through it. But if we reverse the polarity through the wires, then I'm sure that compass will reverse. It won't still point at the compass. But that's an experiment which we can try probably at a later date to find out that. Because if they're saying that the Earth's core now has reversed, then why hasn't the polarity? Why is our compasses still pointing over the northern hemisphere? Why is the Trimag system still saying that the North Pole is over the northern hemisphere? I think what they're trying to do is anything of interest that captures the public interest, they are trying to take charge of and control it. Because if they lose control of a few things that the public are interested in, then there's a great chance that the public will lose interest in other things, like, eventually paying taxes. Because when you do not no longer get anything for your tax money other than abuse, like the abusive partners we've all been with at some point in our lives and experienced, then you no longer want to invest your time, and in the same manner you no longer want to invest your taxes in the hands of such a brutal monster. We are there. I'm going to quickly, before I end this video, show you a few facts about CO2. And I know I've showed these before, but I want to drive it home. 3 things. We are going through a magnetic reversal. It is affecting the climate, and as a result we are getting a new anomaly come about, and that is in the form of global floods, which is displacing tens now of millions of people and costing tens of millions, and reaching into the billions in damage costs. Like somebody pointed out in yesterday's video, if you live on low grounds, sail up and move. Like I pointed out a few years ago, and we're about to see this happen. I know that the property prices are dropping rapidly, but I told people you could have sold your house 2 years ago when I told you, and walked away with 15% more money than what you will today. And if you hang out the storm, you're going to find that 15% is going to go to 40% and maybe 60%. And you're going to be in negative equity if you've got a mortgage, and you're going to lose your property because your job will not be a job for life. Anyhow, let's have a look at some facts. I think what's in front of your eyes right now speaks louder than anything else. All atmospheric gases compared to CO2, and what we find is that CO2 is, as is claimed to be, and was claimed to be for over the last 100 years, a trace gas. 0.04% CO2. That tiny sliver on that blue pie chart, which you probably can't see because it's that thin, is the amount of atmospheric CO2. And then if we move that red sliver over to the right hand side, we can see that naturally occurring CO2 amounts to 999.988%, and the man-made is 0.012%. That's man-made, that little yellow sliver. And there is nothing a government in this world with all the money in the world can do to remove the naturally occurring CO2. There is nothing at all that can be done about that. Yet they're using that 0.04% as an excuse to take more money off you, because as we've seen now, they've set the status quo. They're going to continue to do it. They're changing all the manufacturing techniques that we've spent and worked so hard for the last 200 years in the since the Industrial Revolution, at least 1760. Since then, they've decided to screw that up. Now, what sort of person has that mentality to do that? Those that work for the United Nations, those that work for the European Union, those that work for the benefits of Davos, those that are at the European Monetary Fund or the IMF, International Monetary Fund. Those are the people that drive this nonsense. And if you speak out about this, then they'll come after you. If you cause protests over this, you're going to be locked up. We've seen how they work. It's so blatant now, their corrupt behaviour, that they're no longer interested in covering it up. I can't remember his name now. He was in shock and awe about Russia blowing up that children's hospital in Ukraine. And yet it is disgraceful. But what about the hospitals, the places of worship, and the refugee camps that were blew up in Gaza? Is the same outcry and disgust shown for that? On one hand, they're paying to destroy Gaza, wipe it clean, and on the other hand, they're asking for our sympathy for a country that is getting attacked by another country. Someone with common sense would say it's double standards. And if you want to hold a logic conversation about this, then you've got to be on one side or the other. You can't be on both at the same time. You've got to pick a team. But what we see them doing is, have their cake and eat it. It's hypocrisy at its purest form. I just, we managed to raise £10 yesterday at the observatory. We had one person donate, to the cause of what we do. It's almost at the point where it's not worth it doing any videos on YouTube at all. And it's not just the lack of funds that we raise, it's the censorship. It's the BS, which I'm getting sick of. Despite my gallant efforts to fight on and fight to the last breath, they are winning. You realise that. They're definitely winning, these corrupt individuals. They're using the full resources of governments to go after people that talk and tell the truth right now. We have surpassed the levels of suppression that we witnessed in 1930s, which should turn people's stomachs. But, I guess there isn't many people around from that period of time to say to us now, you do realise that this is a fascist system that you're all part of, and that it starts at, you know, the censorship of information and ends with a huge death camp, like what you can go and visit the museum in Auschwitz, Poland. You know, it got to the point where they were just throwing bodies on fires or putting them in rooms and gassing them. You know, people do nothing at all, then that is where it leads to. It's happened before, and I will tell you this, from what I see, human mentality has not changed in the time since, you know, the Nazis were brutally killing people. But you can record, you know, the behaviours that was taking place before, you know, the murder started. And we're right back there. When governments are prepared, like Keir Starmer, he is well up for suppression of information. But when governments are prepared to censor freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom to share ideas, then you know the Nazis are on your door. There's a link down there, guys, if you want to support what we do here. You know, if you're interested in the latest position of the magnetic North Pole, you can join us over on Patreon. And you know, we will be putting up a few more videos on Patreon just for our patrons. And you know, what else can I say? It's time to start assembling. Something has to be done about this, because 99% of the population of this earth can't be subject to such brutality by just a minority. This earth does not belong to those monsters. It's our inheritance that was gifted to us by God, and it is worth fighting for. As always, take care of your loved ones. Bye for now.